And good afternoon. Welcome. My name is Ryan Belmore. I'm the owner and editor of What's Up Newp, and Mr. Frank Prosnich joins me today. Good afternoon, Frank.
Good afternoon, Ryan. How are you?
Good. How are you're all dressed up in your Baltimore Orioles gear, so
we're doing pretty well.
How are they doing today? All right.
Let's see. They are 8-7. They've been playing pretty well. You know,
right.
Better than the Red Sox.
All right. Well, we are here to talk about much more important things today. The governor just wrapped up about an hour and 40-minute press conference, her weekly press briefing, a lot of it to do with education. And we just so happen to have an education discussion scheduled for this afternoon.
Yep. And it's pretty important, of course, what happens over these next few weeks and the kids going back to school, how they're going back to school, how the schools are funding these programs, all kinds of questions. How many teachers are going to opt out and not want to go back to the classroom if it's in person? What are they doing to accommodate those teachers who decide that they don't want to be in person? So all kinds of questions.
And do you know who has all the answers to that?
Let's see. Trying to think.
Colleen Burns Jermain, Superintendent of Newport Public Schools, has all the answers.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Good afternoon, Colleen.
Yeah.
Do you have all the answers, or do you have more questions?
I think it's more questions, Frank. The more we go forward on this, definitely more questions, and understanding how this is new for all of us. It's a very new world, and each day brings us new information and new adventures that we, as a community, Newport's very fortunate. We're coming together and we're figuring it out together. How are we going to do this to make sure we're bringing our children back to school safely? That's the most important thing, students and staff. So that's our number one priority, and I've said it from the get-go. Health and safety are our number one concern, and that's what will help inform our decisions going forward. But every day we find out something new.
Yeah. So what are your biggest takeaways from today's press conference?
September 14th is the new date. On August 31st, the governor is going to try to give us her best idea of how we may come back. I'm hearing we're going to use the metrics that she put into place a week ago, as far as each community may not look the same. And I think we heard loudly and clearly how she felt about the Warwick School Committee's decision on how to re-enter.
Pretty decisive about that.
Yeah, and most importantly of all, we know students, children being in school is very important for so many reasons. First and foremost, educationally, but then for social behaviors, reactions, being with friends, all of that is so critical to the whole child. But the number one concern is doing it safely. And how do we do it safely and with operations logistics, and making sure we're checking all the boxes to ensure that we keep those, as you heard this today, the social pods of 30 students in a pod. And how do we deliver quality education at the same time and keep our teachers feeling safe and protected, as well as our students and children for our families. So there's a lot of things to think about as we go forward.
Ryan, are you asking a question?
I
can't hear you.
I was.
I saw your lips moving.
I figured I'd practice first. With the Warwick School thing, because it's going to become a headline and probably lead the news, and I just want people to understand it. Warwick School Committee voted last night to start the year with distance learning. The governor pretty much came straight out and said she was against it. But some of the things they pointed to, according to the questions and stories, is they didn't feel comfortable with the age of their school system and the ventilation. And they also, the governor said, they never submitted a plan for full back in school learning. Did Newport Public Schools submit every plan that the governor asked for?
We did, and we kept, yes.
And, can you talk to why Newport School Committee, Newport Public Schools, you felt comfortable that students could go back to Rogers, probably a very similar situation to maybe Warwick schools, just people are going to hear the ventilation, old school type thing, and just trying to give them some information.
All right. So actually, you had a criteria you were supposed to follow when you submitted your plans. You were supposed to submit 3 different. One was in person. One was a hybrid, full in person, hybrid. Then a 25% model, perhaps, and then a full distance plan. So we looked at the criteria. Each school set up its own team. We had over 80 participants, including students, age appropriate, faculty, parents, community leaders, and at each school, they focused on the priorities of academics, operations, health and safety, facilities, and from there, they created the plans. And then as a district, we looked at them as a whole to make sure for our siblings and our families, we coordinated those schedules when we got into the hybrid and the full distance learning so that we could make sure that families, children from the same families were attending school at the same time. So we did do that. As far as the facilities and the ventilation, that has always been one of our biggest concerns, especially being a graduate of Rogers. It was always that way, all the way back in the dinosaur days, between the months of August and October. The building literally, with those floors, it can sweat. And it's a concern. So I have to say our plant engineer, working with our acting facilities director, working with our business administrator, they've looked at different ways of addressing that. And we have fans that are going to be put in each room. We have the luxury, our windows do open, and we have that happening. And he's gone and he's ordered all these equipment to address those concerns. We also have the luxury of having a great campus. Our facilities may be noted as the worst facility in the state, but we have a wonderful, beautiful campus in which we can also have students outdoors as much as possible in the learning. The other thing is we're adjusting the schedule. So Mr. Vance and Mr. Monahan, Mr. Young and Ms. Clark, between the NACTEC program and our Rogers High School full curriculum, they have looked at ways of presenting the curriculum. And at the same time, it's almost like a double sessions where they're going in at 7:30. We're going to get them out of the building by 12:30. So they're not in the building as long. And we'll have a grab and go for breakfast in the morning and different locations because students will be coming in different entrances, and we'll have a grab and go when they go to leave for the day. So they'll also get their meals. But we've really put in a lot of thought. We will have people going through the buildings, ensuring that the ventilation is appropriate. We also have the Thompson situation. Thompson on the 3rd floor, it can be hot, and the teachers can tell you that right away. And again, during the months of August, September, and October, we struggle with heat and ventilation, et cetera. But we, again, the plant engineer there, he went ahead and we have these split fans that are coming in. And actually it was the assistant principal, Nick Baccarat, that he also thought of this. And so they're going to be taking the particles out of the room, if I understand that correctly. And then we were lucky enough that in Pell, we have a circulation system. It's called not air conditioning, it's called reconditioned air when they built that facility. And we have, with the plant engineer over there and the crew there, they've been on the ceilings, they've been going through the all the ventilation, they've been changing the filters. So we know that's a priority. And here in Newport, where we have the 3 buildings, I know in other school districts, they have just as old buildings and they have more of them. So that's how Newport is addressing it. And we've also been really fortunate that we've been working with our teacher leadership ever since we went into distance learning. Back in March, we made it a point almost every day we were meeting with teacher leadership. We were making sure we had everything in place for our teachers, realizing that everyone's at a different entry point, especially when you have to shift that quickly in your teaching. And we learned a lot of lessons during that time. And now going through the summer months and getting ready for reopening, we're addressing how we can better support teachers and families in distance learning, as well as making sure everyone feels comfortable and safe. We did for our families. We just had our questionnaire close. We've been surveying families throughout the March through the end of July time period. And when we had the questionnaire for, the last questionnaire was, okay, now's the time. Do you want to go into distance learning? Do you need transportation? And we did ask for that. And we have approximately 32% of the families that have answered are opting for distance learning. So we're getting that curriculum and we're getting those platforms ready so we can help inform families, students, teachers, what's available in the distance learning. But that's a biggie. And I had people have reached out to me and said, I'm not sure, I don't have enough information. And, you know, the data's changing all the time. What do I do? And my suggestion has been to say you're going to come to in-person, because logistically for us as a school system, to make sure we have everyone safe and we set up the classroom safely, that we would rather you tell us you're coming in person. And then if you opt out, you change your mind the day of, or even if you come and change, it's easier for us to take a desk out of the classroom than to put it in, because we want to make sure we always are abiding by that social distancing.
What's the busing plan?
The busing plan, Frank, is just being developed in this way. Now that we have those that signed up for transportation, we're meeting with our bus company. We've already gone over the cleaning process and what they're going to do. So every time they go between runs, they're going to pull the bus over. They have to wipe down the bus, clean the high-touch areas in between deliveries of students for certain buildings. That's what they're going to be doing. So we went over the cleaning protocols and we know what we're doing there. It's when they're picking up students and where, we still have to determine, and we don't know how many bus runs we have at this point in time. And what I mean by that is the Newport Public Schools is on a 3-tier system. You never thought you were going to learn so much about schools, but here you go. We're on a 3-tier system. So our Rogers, our high school kids, get picked up first. And then after they're delivered to the school, then we'd start our middle school run. And then the middle school students get dropped off, and then we start our Pell run. So I imagine, because we have to keep the numbers down to 31, 33 approximately on a bus, we're going to have to do possibly multiples in between those tiers when they're supposed to start. So those logistics are just being mapped out. And that's why it's really important. And we did have a couple of parents today even say, I missed signing up for the bus. They need the bus. And we do. And in today's family community newsletter, we're going to have an email address. If they still need bus transportation and they missed that, we still want them to sign up, make sure we can get them to school.
In the classroom,
go ahead.
In the classroom, initially, it was 6-foot physical distancing.
Yep.
Connecticut, I know, has gone to 3 foot. Is Newport going to be 3 foot?
Nope, we're 6. We're staying with 6. We're staying with 6. We're requiring masks. We'll have masks for people, and students and adults if they don't have them. We have ordered PPE for all our custodians, nurses. We have shields. If I had you got to have my business guy on. He put on the shield the other night. He has the shields. We have the masks. We have the gloves. We have hand sanitizer. So it's like in the hospital, foam in, foam out when you go into a classroom. In the bathrooms, we're putting barriers up so that students maintain that distance. Students will not be, which is different for the high school level. We're not allowing bathroom trips in between because we want to monitor all whereabouts. So we're going to have different practices and procedures in the buildings on those kind of things. Very simple things, but they are going to change according to following the Department of Health guidelines.
Back to buses, the governor mentioned today that some communities may need to use RIPTA or the National Guard to get kids to school. Do you see that in Newport's plans?
I don't, Ryan, at this point, no, I really don't. If anything, so we have our Career and Tech program, NACTech, and we have students that go out for internships. And through the generous support of community partners, we have received vans in which we take the students out for the carpentry program, or we bring them over to CCRI for the P-TECH program. So we have those vans. And then we just recently ordered another van for one of our programs at the high school. So we're having discussions with some of the COVID funding we receive that we're going to need vans anyways for the future, because if our curriculum continues in the way we like to see it for internships and more off-site learning, that we're thinking of purchasing some more vans. So looking at vans, I'm also going to do an outreach to our community partners, which have been wonderful. And I know they have transportation as well, because if we go into a hybrid, for some of our working families, that's going to be a very challenging situation possibly when their children, their little ones only go in person 2 days a week versus 5 days a week. And I want to see, working with community partners, if we could possibly set up something, or at least make parents aware of some situations within the community that could help them. So that's just you're hearing like the brainstorming and kind of, it's on the paper, but it's not quite, and we're mixing it up, but it's not quite Jell-O yet. So
What are you hearing from teachers? You think you might have teachers who will opt out?
we did an outreach for that in June. We did an outreach early, and because health and safety is number one priority, and everyone has to feel comfortable coming back. If you're nervous and you're not going to be able to do your job well. So we have reached out to our teachers, and we're in the process of right now going through that list. My business director and Meredith Keller in HR, they're going through, and one by one, we're looking at accommodations we may need to put into place. We have had a couple of teachers decide they want to, and by contract they can do this, they can take the year leave without pay. So we've had a couple, and by contract, they're allowed that up to only 5 though. But we're very fortunate. We really haven't had a lot of that. But we also try to keep informing them of what we have for them in the schools and what we're trying to do. And I think to make sure they do feel safe, and they are safe, as well as our students. And we're also having, like I shared with you, with the union leaderships tomorrow. I have weekly meetings with them, but tomorrow I'll be meeting with the teachers. I'll be doing a town hall with all the teachers. This will be my second one this summer in the past, I think, 2 weeks. And then I'll have another one with Council 94 members. And then I'll have another one tomorrow night with parents. And I know some parents may think, well, it's not gonna be decided now till August 31st about how we're going in. But I do think it's important to at least keep the lines of communication open. So parents are going to have questions, and let them, talk to me, or just share those questions, or even some creative ideas to us. Share those with us and see how we can accommodate families.
Governor Raimondo said today that she was moving the opening date from August 31st to September 14th because school systems and superintendents said that they needed more time. Did Newport need more time, or did you think you were ready to go for August 31st?
I appreciate the time. We were going to try our best, but it did feel rushed, Ryan. It really did. And it was, especially, I was trying to give parents as much time as possible to think about the options, distance learning, in person, and then to turn that around. It does give my leadership teams in our buildings some breathing space to kind of really look at the data and take a step back to make sure we have everything in the right place. It also helps with logistics, as far as Frank brought up, the transportation, which is one of the biggest, nuts to crack here. And so I appreciate the time. I think it was a wise decision. And it also gave teachers, which I think was even better, it gave them more time to get reacquainted with the buildings, and they're going to have more opportunity to learn the processes that we're going to have in place. And I think for parents and families, constantly communicating the importance of every day you're going to have to check your child to make sure they don't have those COVID symptoms. And we're going to, I believe, have an app. They can just say yes or no, checked our child. And the other part about all of us, children, staff, leaders, if we're not feeling well, we have symptoms, we have to, we always tough it out in the past. Now we're going to have to say, all right, maybe I should stay home today. So
what do you do when you find your first COVID case?
We have a rapid response. Well, all right. So there's lots of things behind that. All right. So I'll give a scenario. So if we have a student in the school that's showing symptoms or a teacher suspects something, ideally what we're trying to do is we're going to have someone with the nurse. The nurse is not going to be by herself, one or two people. We'll have someone go down to the room, possibly take a temperature. And then we have in each of the buildings, we have isolation rooms. So they're going to go to the isolation room. And from there, the nurse then does a thorough review of the symptoms, see where the child is. We'll follow the playbook that came out on Friday, the guidance from the Department of Health. Within 1 hour, we have that child. That child is supposed to be picked up and leaves the building. Then we have to notify the parents and the teachers. We keep them isolated. And then from there, we take the next steps.
And, I think sometimes we have to think about reality. There is a very, very good chance that there are going to be COVID cases. Just looking at the general numbers, so if it happens, people shouldn't panic and lose their minds because, chances are getting people together, there may be a COVID case. So, you don't have to think the worst outcome is going to happen. It's just chances are, as we've seen, when more and more people start getting together, when Rhode Island reopened up, the cases go up a little bit.
Correct. More than likely, we will see those. And that's why we have a very comprehensive plan following the Department of Health guidelines. We have a communication system. We have everything there. As the governor's been speaking to this, it is very important that we get that testing information back as soon as possible. Now, on today's press conference, I heard she's trying to set up something special for schools. So possibly we'll have on-site testing, which I think would be great. And that would help allay a lot of fears, because then not only do you have the child or the adult that's showing the symptoms, you now have an opportunity for everyone there to also get tested, or if needed, get tested. And I think those are some things, logistics we have to work out, because of course, you can't just go and test children without parents' permission and all those other things. So if that's the thought process, you're going to have it actually on the school grounds. Then as the school system, we have to make sure parents are okay with that, because some parents may say, I don't want you testing my child, just send my child home and whatever. But, we got to respect that everyone's going to have a different approach to once something like this happens.
What happens after several weeks, everything's going great, and these are all human beings. And so I know that, 3, 4, 5 weeks, things seem to be going all right. You can get a little bit lax, you can get a little bit complacent. How do you guard against complacency?
You just have to stick to it. You have to just continuously follow up. You have to be, I'm going to say, consistent. You have to, those teenagers in the hallways, keep going in the same direction, 6 feet apart, the whole 9 yards.
Do you have people who will be monitoring on a regular basis to make sure that, in fact, both the students and the teachers, administration, everybody is compliant?
I think, yes, building leadership. I would turn to building leadership. I'm sure all of them are going to have a plan in place. And it is something we do have to consider. And that's the same as the custodians, as I've shared with our teams and met with them. Their roles are going to be very different. They're going to be present in the school during the day, when most of them are not. Most of them are after school, and then they're doing the cleaning, and then they're going to the classrooms. But their roles are going to change dramatically. They're going to be cleaning high touch areas, that we're going to have the, so many minutes bathroom checks, cleaning of the bathrooms, just like you see in some hotel and restaurants. This bathroom was clean then. We have all those logistics we have to put into place. We have some people that may not have the same roles or do the same duties because of this. And we're, hoping that we work as a team on this. And what I mean by that is one of the goals when we went through this was Newport was very good in the school committee. I thank them for it. We didn't lay anyone off. It was tough times, and it's tough times for everyone. And you never know what anyone is going through. So we've kept all our staff that we had from last year. And we realized that if we have a lot of distance learning or we shift very quickly, we're going to have to adjust and maybe do different roles than we usually do. And for instance, a good example is our paraeducators, because our paraeducators were not necessarily in the classroom with the student, helping the teacher in the classroom. They were the ones we relied on to do the phone calls, to do the home checks, to check in, make sure kids have their work, and help the teachers as far as getting lessons ready and things like that. So everyone kind of did a shift on what they did. I think from my office, it was mostly communication, staying on top of that, monitoring every day, the needs of community, the needs as far as meals, as far as Chromebooks, as far as all that, and making sure all those logistics were in place. I'm very, I've said this, I'm very proud of how Newport reacted when we did go into DL, and we were complimented by many on it, how fast we were able to turn in that situation. But I also remind people we had the national grid crisis, so we had a little practice run when that happened. So,
Colleen, a couple viewers have asked questions that lead to asymptomatic students, teachers, and I'll put them up here. And I'm just wondering what kind of, this one asks, are you doing rapid testing of all students and faculty? Including asymptomatic, as they compromise up to 50% of the cases. And then Melody asks, what happens when a student is asymptomatic? How is the school department going to protect everyone? I know that may be coming from the Department of Health or Dr. Nicole Alexander-Scott. Is the goal eventually, hopefully, if there's enough supplies, to test all students? And what is the plan with asymptomatic?
We have not, I'll just speak for myself as a superintendent, we have not been informed that the plan is we're going to be testing all students. And for asymptomatic, no. As far as when I read the playbook, and this just came out Friday night, and I have to study it a little bit more. At this point in time, we are not testing asymptomatic students at this point in time, nor the same with staff. I did have that question, as a matter of fact, from a staff member, and it leads into many different wonders. One is who's going to pay for the testing? Is the person going to be responsible for the testing? In some cases, if you go on your own health insurance has to pick it up. So there's a lot of different questions. Testing is a big component of the whole reentry plan, and hopefully we can get those test results within 48 to 72 hours as the governor is planning. As far as if the testing sites are going to actually be in the schools, today was kind of the first, I'll say, mention. I was hearing that possibly that may happen. I notice when I drive around town, down by over at the Walmart shopping center, there's a testing site tent set up, and over by CCRI, but I really don't see any others anywhere else.
Do you think we'll get to a point like with the hospitals and nursing homes where teachers will be able to get tested regularly?
I don't think it's a bad idea, especially for their own security and their own safety and, just their comfort level. I have not heard that one yet. So it could be a possibility.
Me neither. That's why I asked you.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard that one yet. But it's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Financially, how are you coping with this?
Financially, Frank, right now we're doing okay. My business manager has been really good, working with my acting facilities director, that's Mr. Gonsalves and Mr. Young, along with our plant engineers. Financially, we're doing all right. And we have the state, they're going to be issuing us thermometers, those forehead thermometers. Those are coming down to us. I think we're getting quite a few of those. We're doing okay right now.
Colleen, we've already had you for 30 minutes and we appreciate the time. Just wondering, I'll ask you in a couple different phases, but what is one thing that you wish all parents or all students should know or should be doing right now to get ready for the school year?
Okay, so one is every family's different. So I would never compare yourself to another family. You have to make the decision that's best for your own family. That's first and foremost. Second thing is coming back to school, going back to school is going to be very different for everyone. And everyone is learning as we go through this. So we need to be patient and we need to be flexible and fluid. Those are the two words I'm using a lot, flexible, and it's a fluid situation. Masks are required. Students, staff, we all have to wear those masks. So if your children are not wearing masks right now, I would practice or have them practice. That's very important if they're going into in-person learning. Transportation, if you want transportation, you didn't get a chance to sign up, please go to our website. There'll be a place you can do it. The timeline has passed, but we'll do that. If you're undecided about what to do, I recommend saying that you're going to do in person. You can switch at any time to distance learning, anytime. But for logistics and to keep our rooms safe and everything socially distanced, we really need to know if you're going to, be in person or in distance learning. So, and if you can't make up your mind, then don't fill out the distance learning, and we'll have you on. You're coming in. Health and safety are our number one priority. We're not going to open unless it's safe. So I think parents need to know that as well. If they have any questions, I will continue to have town hall meetings. They can contact their building principals. But I think first and foremost, you have to do what's right for your own family. We know in-person learning is better for children, but we also know there's a high concern about safety and the unknowns with COVID. And we understand that, and that's why we're going to make sure we have a high quality distance learning program for children who do not come in. And you can change your mind about distance learning. If you do distance learning for the first 60 educational days, 6 days instructional days, and that would take you to December 1st. And then if then you feel comfortable, your child can certainly come back and do in person. But that's why I'm saying if you're undecided, say you're going to do in person, because it's much easier to switch into distance learning than to come out of distance learning.
I've got one last question, and it kind of takes a left turn. You've got a big bond issue coming up in November, at a time when a lot of families are being challenged. What are your expectations? What are your hopes? What's your message to the electorate?
We need a new high school, and we need the addition at Pell. That is a must. And if last night at our school committee meeting, as Councilwoman Ida Neary said, 43 cents a day if your house is appraised at $400,000, and then we did all the way up to 1.5 million. I think it's $2.25, 50 cents a day. That will be the entire cost for every day for the next 3 to 4 years to build the new high school and to build the addition at Pell, which we desperately need. If anything, to Ryan's question earlier about the facilities, Rogers is the #1 worst facility in the state. And education is critical for all our kids. And our career and tech programs, everything, they're like state of the art, they're growing. And our new facility is built around that, allowing students to have CTE training, allowing them to get certification, internships, and at the same time participate in AP courses and the whole works. It's a great educational program, and we need it. So I'm saying I'm looking for the bond to pass and move forward. And if anyone needs information about the impact on the taxpayer, we rolled that out last night at our school committee meeting, and I actually had a couple of people call me today thanking me, and they thought that was great news. Laura Citron, our city finance director, she's the one that put it all together. Now, the city council can change it at any time, it's my understanding, but at least we have a rollout that we can show our community members. And I'm happy to come back and talk about that.
Yeah,
we can do that.
Colleen, eventually we have to get this school year started. Is it safe to say that if we're not ready for in-school by September 14th, that we'll start the year distance learning?
If we're not following all the criteria and we have a spike, yes, that's very safe to say.
We can't push it much further than kids will be in school until mid-July.
They can't. That's
Yeah.
by contract.
So
And my teachers tell me that they can't.
Yeah.
But anyways, you're right, Ryan. No matter what, school, it appears to me at this point in time, September 14th looks like it's very doable for a lot of school districts, whether it's going to be distance learning, whether it's going to be in-person learning, or whether it's going to be hybrid. It does look doable, but health and safety is the number one priority. I know all school districts and all superintendents and school committees will consider for opening their districts.
Anything we missed today?
I don't know. You probably learned more about schools than everyone. No. My husband always says, "Don't stand next to her; she'll keep going."
I have a fun one. What do you, obviously we're not traveling anywhere this summer. All of our trips, vacations. Obviously, if you had anything planned this summer, you've probably been working, probably haven't taken a vacation. But what are you doing this summer that you wouldn't thought you'd be doing because of COVID? What are you enjoying?
I do a lot of walking.
Yeah.
I think people see me too. I have a big hat on. I do a lot of walking. I even have teachers text me saying, "I saw you over on Bellevue Avenue. Now you're over by First Beach. Now you're out on the drive." The more I walk, the more I've got things on my mind.
That's okay. That's good.
A lot of walking. And what a more beautiful place to be walking too. So, there you go.
I think everybody needs to step back and get away from it all and stop reading about it and stop talking about it and just spend a couple minutes by themselves processing all that's going on. That's
true. And we're also trying to highlight all the, kind of all the fun things and the good things that are going on. Teachers are working. We've had summer programs going on, and I think you've seen some of them highlighted in our local papers. But we have started to have some practice with this, and we've been studying very hard with our partners, community partners, what's going on in their summer camps and how they've been handling things. And I know, just looking at the playbook that the Department of Health put out, I can see the tweaks they made based on the experiences I heard from our community partners. So, the good part is it is being based, from what, at least from my perspective, on science, data, and we're using metrics. And if we continue that, I think we'll be in good shape.
Excellent. Well, Colleen, thank you for spending so much time with us.
Thank you, Colleen.
You're welcome. It's good seeing you.
Yeah, we'll have you back on before November, and we'll talk more about the school bond.
Okay, sounds
Hopefully
great.
we're back in school by then.
All right. Take care.
All right.
Take care. Thank you, Colleen.
And that was Colleen Burns Jermain, who is the Superintendent of Newport Public Schools. And Frank, any takeaways?
Well, I think it sounds like everybody is ready to do whatever they're going to do in September. It seems like the question of finances is not an issue. I just wonder how you sustain it. After after a period of time, and you've got kids in school, and I think high school kids, after a while, this is I don't need my mask, and I just hope that what's in place is the people in the schools to make sure that we're able to keep that up. And but it sounds like Newport has it together. I think it was good that the governor gave a couple more weeks. I know that in school districts, they were concerned about being rushed into this, and we're just going to have to see what happens.
Very interesting that I think September 14th for school starting is the absolute latest it can start, and get those 170 something days in now.
177, I think.
Yeah, because they can't go into July. So September 14th, school is starting one way or another. We just found out it has to contractually. And also, I found it very interesting that the superintendent mentioned that parents and students they have up until December, so they can take, let's call this fall semester off and do distance learning, and then come back to school maybe in December. That's an option I hadn't heard. I had heard that distance learn you can choose, but you could almost get the best of both worlds there.
Yep, flexibility is very important. We're in incredibly uncertain times. We didn't even touch on it, but the other elephant in the room, if you will, is that we have flu season coming up. And so what happens with the flu and the pandemic and all of that together, it's anybody's guess. And the other piece that that we didn't mention is people have to be pretty diligent about their vaccinations this year. Their flu vaccinations, and when and if we get a vaccination for the coronavirus, they need to do that. That's the biggest deal long term.
It is. All right, Frank. Well, appreciate it. And we have a lot of other content coming up this week. Lots in the political world.
Yeah, I've heard rumors of that. School
committee, city council, all of those other topics. So that will do it for this. We'll catch up. We caught up with the superintendent from Westerly Public Schools last week, and we'll continue talking about education as well as COVID and elections and all of that good stuff. City council meeting coming up at 6:30 p.m. tonight for Newport. We'll have that live on our website, YouTube, as well as Facebook page. Frank, anything else today?
No, I think that's it. These are the most interesting of times.
They are. And for the very latest, visit whatsupnewp.com. We're working around the clock to keep it updated and bring you the latest. As somebody emailed me this morning, you guys aren't a daily, you guys are an hourly.
Yeah.
We try to keep people updated on the hour every hour. So, all right, Frank. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan.
And my thanks to Colleen Burns Jermain, Superintendent of Public Schools, for joining us today. Have a guest that we should talk to, have a question, have a topic that you'd like to see us discuss, email me, Ryan@whatsupnewp.com. Thanks.